Hello, my name is GiBi and welcome to the Horror Homestead. Today, for the first time, I'm going to be telling a real ghost story. But I don't really think this lighting is appropriate for that, so that's better, I think. I don't really know how lighting works, but today I'm going to go over my personal ghost story. I've told lots of ghost stories in the past. I've talked about a haunted house. I've talked about possessed animatronics. I've talked about girls leaving Chris Chan on red. But today I'm going to tell the story of the time that I was attacked by a ghost. That's the low rumbling sound that's barely audible that I'm going to play every time a scary thing happens. This story begins quite a number of years ago. I was not at the house I am currently in right now. I was actually staying with my father. My younger brother and I used to go to his house every couple months, especially while I was in college, just to visit, just to see how he was doing. We went in on a Saturday, and he was out doing some errand, and we weren't going to see him until much later that night. So we let ourselves in, we said hello to the dogs, and then my little brother went about making his dinner. This would have been around 7 p.m. because I was sitting on the couch watching Jeopardy! It was a spring night, so it was a very nice temperature to go outside, but it wasn't those summer hours where the sun is still up and bright until 9 p.m., so it was dark, but it was nice. We had some of the windows open throughout the house, but of course we had that nice mesh screening up so that flies and whatnot can't get in. I had plans to wake up early the next morning because my older brother was going to come and pick me up, and we were actually going to go and do a job together. We would be helping somebody move furniture in their house. So we were going to have dinner, watch some Jeopardy, my father would get home late, go to bed, I would wake up, and then I'd be gone. What's important to this story is the layout of my father's house. I'm sitting on a couch facing the television, and behind me is a railing. That railing having steps that leads downstairs. So behind me is this large drop-off. Basically, unless you were on the top 3 steps, you wouldn't be able to reach me, to reach up and tap on my shoulder. If I was to stand up from the couch and turn around and face the opposite direction and take a couple steps to the left, I'd be looking down a very long hallway. At the end of that hallway, of course, being multiple bedrooms. Staring forward at the television, the periphery of my vision can see a large, old glass hutch. Think of something that is way too heavy to be practical, made of wood, but has very reflective glass doors. And inside it are just a bunch of kitschy nonsense, some fancy plates, some pictures, a weird egg. There's a weird fancy porcelain egg in there, and if you open it, there's a little model of a Yorkshire Terrier. Kind of scares me. So I'm watching Jeopardy, my brother's in the kitchen. He actually steps outside for a moment just to enjoy the fresh air. And out of the corner of my eye, I see something white reflected in the hutch. Now, it's not behind me, it's not right next to me, it's not a spooky face. It's just something down the hallway behind me. Now, of course, no one is home except for me and my brother who's outside. We're not expecting my father back for hours. So I look up, I see just the reflection of something down the hallway. I turn my attention back to Alex Trebek, and then I do a double take. There was something there. And the moment that I turn my attention back to the reflection, the door down the hallway closes. Now, I'm not talking about a sound effect of a door closing, I'm talking a door slamming sound. This isn't someone sneaking around, turning the handle and slowly closing it so that they don't know they're there. This is someone closing the door. Now, the door should have been closed to begin with. It's not exactly that the dogs aren't allowed back there, it's more that we keep the doors closed so that the dogs don't just go missing under the bed. So the door should have been closed to begin with. It's also a very dark wooden colored door. You know, if this was white, there's a white door down the hallway, and I saw something white reflected in the glass, and then the door closed, I would think it just swung closed on its own, but that's clearly not what happened here. So my first instinct is to, well, not get up, not investigate, because there's clearly someone in my bedroom. I stand up, I face down the hallway so that if they were to open the door, they would see me standing there, T-posing for dominance, and I'm watching it as if seeing them, being able to make eye contact with them where they'd open the door again would spook them, would prevent them from charging at me with a knife, or with whatever ghostly spectral powers they have. Keep in mind at this point, I'm not thinking ghost. I don't believe in ghosts. I'm thinking someone in the house. I wait for a minute or two, and finally my brother comes back inside. He has a pot on the stove, so he's got to come check on it, and I just put my hand up, like, hey, be quiet. I'm like, come over here. He comes over here. I just saw someone down the hallway. I saw somebody reflected in the glass, and then the door closed. Go get 2 butcher knives. He walks in the kitchen, he turns the heat off on the stove, and he grabs 2 very long kitchen knives. We grab them, we wield them like swords, and we both face down the hallway. And we look at each other and we're like, do we go? The guy's clearly trapped there, and if we walk down the hallway, there's going to be some squeaking noises. He's going to know we're coming, and if he's armed with anything, our knives are not going to do anything. So we just kind of stand there. We actually face back to back with our knives outstretched like this, one of us facing down the hallway, and one of us kind of facing the kitchen area. Because if there's one person in the house, there might be more than one. After standing like that for a minute or two, we start to get our wits about us. We think, oh, maybe our dad came home and is in my bedroom for some reason. Oh, maybe there's a draft. We decide we're going to go check on it. We decide that the only thing that we can reasonably do in order to prevent ourselves from just standing like that for 2 hours until our father gets home, and of course once that happens, it doesn't really help the situation. I don't know if 3 knives are necessarily better than 2 knives. We tiptoe down the hallway. He grabs the doorknob, he's going to throw it open, and I'm going to lunge inside to make sure that there's no one there. He throws the door open, and there's no one there. Now, this does not relieve us of our anxiety. In fact, this makes it so much worse. Now, when I say this is my bedroom, I mean this is the bedroom that I stay in when I'm there. This is one of my dad's guest bedrooms, and because it's slightly larger, and because I'm the older brother, it's mine. So I didn't decorate this room. And sitting on the bed are what I'm going to describe as clearly haunted dolls. Old raggedy teddy bears. Spooky, just little, like, old things. I have a feeling that 20 years from now, my generation's kids are going to have some sort of innate fear of Squishmallows. These were not Squishmallows. These were old dolls. And they just sit on the bed because my dad and stepmom just toss them in there. At the foot of the bed is a large closet, and the door to the closet is a big mirror. Obviously, the bed is elevated. It's a queen-size bed, probably, and it has a bed skirt. So basically, somebody could be under the bed, somebody could be under the dolls, and somebody could be in the giant closet. I don't know if you've ever been a child before and played hide and seek, but if you're ever hiding somewhere and there's just like the smallest, littlest gap, and you can see out of it just completely unobstructed, and nobody can see into it, that would probably be what it would be like being inside that closet with the door creaked just a little open. Just a little open so that you could see everything going on inside of the room, but nobody could see you. Same thing with maybe lifting up the skirt of the bed a little bit, or having your eye peeking out between the dolls, like that scene in E.T. that has traumatized me since I was a child. So now we're standing in the room. We think there's someone in there, but we can't see them, and they can see us. If we approach the bed and they're under the bed, well, that's a problem. If we approach the bed to look under the bed and they're under the dolls, that's a bigger problem. If I go for the under the bed and my brother goes for the dolls and he's in the closet, that's a bigger problem. And if we vocally discuss what we're going to do, then he can hear us. My brother gets down on all fours and crawls toward the bed skirt. I climb onto the bed and can very easily tell that there's no one under the dolls. When I'm closer to it, I can see that there's not really room for anybody to be, like, hiding underneath them. But I'm standing on the bed, holding the knife like this, so that if someone jumps out of the closet, I can just stab them. So I bend down, I lift up the bed skirt, he checks, and there's no one there. So now the last thing to do is to open the closet door. As I said earlier, the windows are open. Now, the windows are open, but they are far too small for someone to fit through. I would describe them almost as prison windows. They're like square. They're very square, and nobody could reasonably go through them. And if somebody did reasonably go through them, they wouldn't be able to put the mesh wiring back in from the outside. It's also not like a lower level of the house's roof is under the window. It's just a straight drop down 2 stories. So they did not go through the window. So at this point, we're both standing there, facing the mirror, looking at our own reflections, thinking that if this person is in the house, they are in there. It's one of those sliding mirrors where, like, this one's in the back and this part's in the forward, and you can, like, slide them like this, but you can also slide them like this. So you go to the mirror, we push it open, there's a bunch of coats hanging in there, there's a bunch of shoes and boots on the ground, and there's no one there. So this is kind of spooky to us, of course, because I definitely saw someone, and my brother could see the expression on my face that I was very serious. So we go, we leave, we close the door. We assure ourselves that, okay, they're not in that room, but maybe when I heard a door closing, it was one of the other doors. We go, we peek our heads inside, we open the closet, look under the beds, not as scared now anymore. But we clear the house. We make sure that nobody is there. So we go back to the kitchen and the living room, and now Wheel of Fortune is on. It's a fate worse than being stabbed. That's not true. I love Wheel of Fortune. So my brother has his dinner. We're still a little on edge, but not in a, stabby man in the house kind of way, but in a ghost in the house kind of way. Now, when I say I don't believe in ghosts, I genuinely do not believe in ghosts. And if this had happened, I would have just convinced myself that it was a trick of the light. It was just like I saw something weird reflected in the glass, and then the wind blew the door closed at the perfectly wrong time. I was just spooked. It was just dark out. I was technically in the house alone. If something's gonna go wrong in the house, it's gonna be at a spooky nighttime when you're alone in the house, and no one's gonna be there for hours. Ooh. Dad gets home. Tell him what happened. He's like, yeah, okay, it's cool, it's whatever, it's weird. The people before us that had this house were very odd, and they're those weird, like, messy people who let cats pee everywhere and who just are hoarders and put stuff all over the house. Not so much in the, like, the last owner of the house died and their ghost is here, but possibly in a, they obtained some sort of cursed item and may have left it in the attic kind of totally rational fear that I'm now having. But there's no other events. Have some dinner, watch some TV, go to bed. I have to get up first thing the next morning. Probably like 8 a.m. Not like super early, but definitely more early than anybody else is willing to get up on a weekday morning. So I wake up the next morning and I go into the kitchen and I'm gonna make my breakfast. Now my dad's kitchen, I'm gonna call it a square. And running along the top of the square room are these racks. And on those racks are heavy pots and pans and porcelain bowls. Those weird like white bowls with a lid that like people bake mac and cheese in. Or turkey stuffing. Those are stored up there because it's a small kitchen. So I'm walking around, I got a pan on the stove, I'm making some eggs, I open the fridge, I get some water. I'm texting on my phone, I'm checking the time, I'm making my eggs. And I just go and I stand in the doorway to the kitchen. And right above me on that wire rack is, again, one of those big heavy white bowls. And I'm not doing anything, I'm not closing the fridge, I'm not stomping around, I'm just standing there. And what happens is exactly what you would expect to happen. The extremely white, heavy bowl falls off the rack above me, smacks me in the head, and then clatters to the floor. My immediate reaction is to go like, what just happened? And then the lid of the bowl also slides off the shelf and hits me in the head and falls on the floor. This has, of course, made a very loud banging sound first thing in the morning, and something has struck me on the head. So while I, of course, noticed that the thing that hit me in the head was the bowl, I look up, because something must have pushed this thing off the shelf, and there's nothing there. There's other bowls stacked next to it, it's just this one that fell, and it must have been pushed 5 inches away from the wall to have actually tipped over the side. It's also not like it went and it tipped and it fell on its little ridged side. The bottom of the bowl hit me, so it moved over and then fell straight down, hit me on the top of the head and clattered to the floor. Now, I don't know the exact strength of these types of dishes, but it did not break. It was perfectly fine. Same thing with the lid, not even a little chip on it. So I bend down and pick it up, I put it back where it was, and then I examine it, and I'm like, what could have possibly made this fall? And then, almost like a camera shifting focus, I look down, and I look into the living room, and I see the glass hutch. And I almost make eye contact with where the ghost would have been the previous day. Now, it's not like I see another ghostly reflection in it. If that had happened, I would have called a priest. But this just like sparks my realization that the thing I saw in the house was a ghost. And now that I'm alone again, the ghost has attacked me. To this day, many years later, nothing else has ever fallen off of that wire rack shelf. Obviously, I told this story to my dad, my stepmom, and my brother, and they said that nothing else has ever fallen off the shelf on them. They didn't feel an earthquake, they didn't experience anything like this ever again. Now, of course, I have seen what I'm going to call apparitions before, but never things that I thought were ghosts. Just like you turn around, you look at something really quickly, and you see a shadowy figure, or you see some sort of white shining light, and then you look back and it's gone. And you're like, oh, that's just how human peripheral vision works. It just do be like that sometimes. Obviously, I've had doors slam in houses that weren't there, and weird creaky noises. Things that are completely explainable by understanding that human perception is extremely flawed. But I've never been in a house where I hear something, see something, and then feel something, and they're all ghostly. And I wasn't scared. I wasn't watching the spooky channel on the TV. I was watching Jeopardy. I was making an egg omelet. I wasn't primed for seeing something shadowy in front of me. It just happened one day. I was attacked by a ghost. The video just turned off because my computer ran out of space because this video so far has been 35 gigs of 4K video. And that's the real scary part. So yeah, to this day, I still say that I don't believe in ghosts. They don't fit with my understanding of the universe. They don't fit with my religious beliefs. They don't fit with my inherent skepticism of things like flawed human perception, flawed human ability to pronounce the word flawed, apparently. I have witnessed one other thing, and that was something that happened to me at work. Basically, there was just this metal tin that was sitting on a shelf, and it just started spinning, and then it stopped. There's other things on the shelf, none of them moved, there was no breeze, there was no shaking. I watched it happen in real time, and then I got it on footage. I'm not going to show you that footage because I would probably get fired because it's from the security cameras, but like, I've watched this video and I've showed it to everyone else who's ever worked at that theater, and they agree it's a ghost. So yeah, because this channel is GiBi's Horror Homestead, I wanted to tell you the only real story I have of something supernatural happening. A 100% true story that I can attest to, that I witnessed, that happened to me. I was attacked by a ghost. Oh, also, I forgot, when I was first reading the book about Sir George, the Ghost of Nyack, I got to a part that was like, oh my god, the ghost is in the room. And I don't believe in ghosts, and so in my head, I'm like, this is stupid, this isn't real. And then the power went out, and that was so cool. Oh my god. I was also home alone when that happened. Thank you for watching. Please be nice to each other in the comments. Consider supporting the creators you admire. Never lose sight of the things that are most important to you. And be careful while watching Jeopardy!